Welcome to Coffee Break with Rachel V. Hill, presented by Superbook Sports. Taking a daily look at the biggest stories in Denver sports and interacting live with you, the Coffee Break fam. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of joe, and enjoy your coffee break. Here's your host, Rachel V. Hill.
Well, good morning, everybody, and happy Wednesday. Richie and I are just sitting here popping our necks because we had a late night last night hanging out with the cool kids, Mark Schlereth, Terrell Davis. We were hanging with them last night.
Yeah, it was great. I don't live in that world as often as they do, but when I get the call up, I happily accept.
We were eating some fine dining. I'd never been to. It's not Garden and Grace. I want to keep calling it that.
Guard and Grace.
Guard and Grace in downtown Denver. Delicious food.
Oh my gosh! Listen, I've come to the realization as I enter into a later phase in my young adult life that if you want me to be somewhere, all you have to tell me is past appetizers.
Oh,
you bring around some little, crostini or some little thing on a tray, I'm there.
It's no longer the free booze that'll get you.
Well, I mean, if we're being honest. Yeah, I mean, if you can have both, great.
It was fun though. Last night they did like a charity event. There was a silent auction, lots of like cool things that you could win. It was overall just a really good night and something obviously both out of like you and I's normal night.
I loved it. It was for a great cause, a lot of mental health awareness and some things. And it was really cool to see, guys like our own Mark Schlereth and Terrell Davis and Steve Atwater, former players from other teams. There were Raiders players there. Cardinals. It was just really cool to see all of them also so passionate. I mean, Terrell Davis gave a speech for like 12 straight minutes last night. And
he was pulling our Jerry Rosberg.
Yeah. Listen, he had the mic and he was going to make sure that he got everything out. And I respect that.
And he definitely did. I was going to say last night was fun. Training camp yesterday was good. I feel like I didn't walk away and I wasn't like, oh my gosh, they're looking terrible. So this was my first one back, obviously after vacation. And before I had left, it was like every single day we were like, are they going to look better? Are they going to look better? They finally looked better to me. So I want to know for yours, we're going to do a hot or not. So tell me who's on your hot list right now? Who are you absolutely loving to watch?
I'm hot on Jerry Jeudy.
Gotta be.
I'm hot on Jerry Jeudy. Wide
receiver number one.
Yep. I think that his route running has always looked crisp, but I think there's only been a couple of instances, both in practice and in that preseason game, where like the dropsies kind of came back or whatever. But overall, I think I've seen a improvement in the chemistry between him and Russell Wilson. I think that offense that they're both now in, they look more comfortable, both of them.
Yeah.
I'm hotter. I mean, I don't know if I'm like hot, but I'm like at least warming up on Courtland Sutton, because we've watched him in camp ever since his ACL injury.
Yeah.
And he just hasn't looked the same. He didn't have that. When Courtland Sutton came out of SMU, it was like, this guy is a jump ball machine. Mm-hmm. There is not going to be a 50-50 ball that Courtland Sutton loses against a defender, because he was that big and that like rangy, and he just hasn't looked like that. But it hasn't just been me. There's been buzz around camp from a lot of people. He looks the best he's looked since that injury. And it's just one of those things where you never know how far it's going to take to get somebody. We'll see if it translates. I'm not trying to anoint anybody, but I'm warm on him. What about you?
No,
who are you
I like
hot
it.
on?
Greg Dulcich to me was somebody who stood out yesterday, because I just think the chemistry between him and Russell Wilson is definitely building, and it's there, and you're seeing the offseason work that they have put in together. And it's a lot of this is chemistry, right? Like, how many reps are you able to get in? How are you building that trust? And I just feel like yesterday I saw a lot of Greg Dulcich, and it was like, oh, it's not a dropped pass from him, or, oh, it's not on his shoulder or whatever. It was just perfectly placed from Russell Wilson.
I'll throw Nick Benito's name in there too. That was a guy who I'm hot on him. I'll go. This isn't a warm thing. I'm hot on Nick Benito, especially because, again, last year, I know he wasn't a first round pick and all of that, but he was the first draft pick that the Broncos made that year when they were they was like the last pick in the second round, I think, or
2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago, because of the Russell Wilson trade. And he just didn't seem to live up to that billing. His college tape looked really good. There was a lot of hype and expectation, and some of it probably unfairly, because again, he was a late second round pick, but since he was our first selection, I feel like that first round pick emphasis was placed on him, and it just felt like he was kind of young and out of place, and it wasn't there.
Didn't live up to it.
He has wrecked some drills in camp this year, and so I'm excited to see where that goes. And you could throw Randy Gregory in there too, but I feel like we've always been hot on Randy Gregory when he's healthy. It's just, is he going to be there?
Is he going to be there is the exact question. Okay, so who are you not hot on? Who have you looked at and you've been like, well, you haven't looked as good as I thought you were going to?
I'm I'm cold. I'm not hot on a lot of the offensive line. I'm not hot so far on Garrett Bowles. I feel like he hasn't looked. He had that amazing year, amazing relative to how he had performed up to that point during the COVID year.
Yeah.
And there was like a lax on the holding calls and things like that definitely coincided. But he performed. He did what he had to do. He got paid. And I just feel like it's been touch and go kind of since then.
It's like if there's any noise, Garrett gets like freaked.
Yeah.
He's like, well, wait a second. Hold on.
And he's so athletic. Like he physically, he's a freak. And it just like, it just hasn't quite translated. I think we're going to see an uptick in holding penalties. And, you know, I don't know if it'll be so bad as like the offense with the, you know, holding offense number 73 being like the ring that goes throughout the game. I'm also not super hot thus far on Mike McGlinchey. I think that he has a little bit of unfair expectations placed on him again because of context, because the Broncos haven't been able to solve right tackle since Orlando Franklin was paying, and and that's free agency. You're going to overpay for good, you're going to pay great money for good talent.
True.
So I think he has a little bit of unfair expectations on him. I'm not saying that he's going to be like an outright bust like we've seen at the right tackle position, you know, in years past, but I'm a little nervous about the two bookends there on the offensive line.
Offensive line is definitely freaking me out. McGlinchey, how long do we give him a pass? Because he did miss the first, full week?
He was dealing with some unfortunate personal
Family,
circumstances and all that. And he does deserve some grace for that. And then he got nicked up a little bit. I think it was an ankle that he tweaked his ankle a little bit.
He was off working to the side yesterday a little bit. So yes, he deserves a little grace. I think everybody, hot or not, deserves a little bit of, training camp.
Wait and
it's
see,
a grind.
It's training camp. It's a grind. We're in the dog days of it now, the final few days, and then they're going to have, continued off-season work. But I would say that he deserves a couple of weeks of grace. If after the first 3 to 4 weeks of the season, if it doesn't look.
Oh, you're giving him a lot of time.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm in a good mood.
Yeah, maybe. My goodness, Richie, you were up at 4 a.m. You are in a good mood, apparently.
All right. You know what? You're right. I should be more cynical. 2 weeks. I'm giving him 2 weeks. In my opinion, if we don't see signs of life after 2 weeks, because of the nature of that position, I think we can forecast pretty well how that might look.
Which is not good for Russell Wilson.
No, Russ.
A running Russ is not a good Russ.
No, and again, and maybe Sean Payton, who that's another person I would put in my hot camp if we were still going that. Or I'm hot on Sean Payton.
Okay.
If he, being the reputable offensive mind and the very skilled coach that he is able to scheme around some of those things, then that would give me a little bit more hope. So I think like it's tough if you're struggling at both tackle positions, because if it's one, you can kind of move the other way, you can shift things, you can add protection, slide protection. But if it's both sides, that makes it tough. So I'm not hot on Russell Wilson, but I do think he's going to look better this year, provided he's not on his back 1.7 seconds after every snap.
Yesterday, Sean Payton talked about in his press conferences, somebody had asked him about, the different like therapies, like cryotherapy and other things that he was doing when he was with the Saints. And I thought it was so interesting how he played so much into the military side and like really talked with all of those guys, because the NFL is looked at as this big dog. And Sean Payton was like, you know what? Actually, there is like a bigger dog, and that's the military.
Yep. Yeah, no, that was really interesting to see his philosophy and his background on it, because it's something he's carried with him like all throughout his time in New Orleans. He's clearly sourced and pulled together that information from other people who are intelligent in that area. Have you ever done cryotherapy, by the way?
No, I haven't. I want to, but it really scares me. I
feel like it scares you by saying like, oh, you're going to walk into a stand-up tanning bed looking thing, basically, but it's going to be negative 212 degrees.
Does it even feel that cold?
It feels cold, but not as cold as you would think looking at the number. And I will say, not that I'm, an athlete, of any substance at this point.
Richie's hitting it up every day.
Yeah, but I did do it. I got a gift card. I did do it. And even I, as like a non-athlete, I work out and I do some active things. Even I felt the looseness and the muscle recovery from it. So it made me much more of a believer in that. So when I heard that yesterday, that's the first thing I thought of like, I'm glad that he's got an emphasis on that, because it's rooted in knowledge and experience and intelligence that he's gathered. So it's like he has a purpose for these things.
Wait, so who gave you a gift card to go do cryotherapy?
I won a gift card
from him.
There was a workout in the park kind of thing from some gym, and my friends joined, and I went as a non-member of the gym. They let me enter the raffle. I won the best prize.
Well, my first like I think my first unofficial day here at 104.3 The Fan in Denver Sports, there was like a taco bar thing, and you won a gift card right off the bat that day too. Richie's winning all the things.
Here we go.
I don't understand. I've won a towel once in my life, and at like a Girl Scout event when I was 8. And I still have that towel, by the way. And you're over here winning all sorts of stuff.
Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, as John Elway once said. And so I'm not going to apologize for being in the right place at the right time. And if I develop a reputation around the office as the guy who wins, I can live with that.
Or gets tickets to go to cool places all the time. You gotta know people, man.
It's not bad to be me.
I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you. I'm jealous. That's why I'm bringing it up, but I'm very jealous. We're talking a lot, obviously, about recovery and such. Jamal Murray announced he's not going to play for the FIBA World Cup. And it's because he didn't have a short enough summer, essentially. He needed more time for his body to recover to get ready for, the company that actually pays him the big bucks. That's the Denver Nuggets. Yeah,
this is an interesting thing that I feel like Denver sports fans and the Denver athletes, specifically with the Nuggets and Avalanche, are starting to feel, is that when you go the distance, when you win championships, that offseason looks dramatically different. That time, the 1-2-3 Cancun is over. Yeah. You know what I mean? You have a very finite window. And then when you have these, especially like these basketball players who have, other interests internationally, playing for their country, competing in the World Cup and all that, it adds all that extra pressure. We saw Jokic was going to sit out for Team Serbia, and we pretty universally thought that was a good decision. And you knew that was a big deal for him because he takes so much pride in doing that. And so Jamal, and this was an educated decision on Jamal's part too. He said, I wanted to test it out, but it was very important to me to make sure that I had the rest and recovery that I knew that I was going to need. And I don't feel that I have that. And he talked to his team physicians. He's clearly spoken to doctors and made that choice. And I really respect it. It's going to be a net positive for the Nuggets, I'm sure. Yes. But I applaud and I respect both of them for making that decision.
So I was on do not play no matter what. We saw with Chanchar, he got hurt, tore his ACL. So I was like, injuries can happen no matter what. And when you are playing a competitive sport, no matter what, these guys are competitive, they're going to go out there and give it their best. I was like, I just don't love it for Jamal. Like, they're still in a championship window where I'm like, you guys could win again. Like, they pretty much brought back everybody.
And
so
it feels
like
selfish to feel that way, right? Like, because
100%.
he's very passionate about playing for Canada and representing them, just like Jokic in Serbia.
And he says he still wants to for the Olympics.
It's right. And it feels selfish to be like, no, you shouldn't do this thing that you like because it will negatively impact me in my circle here as a Nuggets fan. But the reality is that that's going to be the case no matter what side of that coin that you're on.
True.
And again, it goes back to that respect factor. Like, it's a big deal to me as in the way that I think I view Jamal as a Nugget, as a basketball player, and as a member of kind of our community, that he cared enough about that to say that. Because you're right. Like, he makes his money in the NBA and all that stuff, but these guys make so much money that I feel like there's a certain point where it rounds off. Like, money is important to them, but like when you're, especially in the NBA where these contracts are crazy, like James Harden signs a $250 million contract. Money, when it's all guaranteed like that, at some point it feels like it does mean less. So Jamal, I don't think that even the money thing factored into him. I think it's the championship thing.
100%.
I think it's the fact that who took so long to fully come back and be himself, and who he knew he could be when a lot of us doubted that he could ever get back to that point, the birth of bubble Jamal or playoff Jamal or all that. Well, now it's championship Jamal. You know what I mean? And so I think
it's time to do it again.
I think that from a mentality standpoint, you couldn't want much more than what you heard from him in making that decision.
Did you see the interview? This is a pop culture thing. So if you're not on TikTok or you don't pay attention to pop culture, you might not quite understand the Bobby Aldroff and Drake interview.
Yeah, she's the one where she's super awkward, right?
So awkward.
I love it.
Please go Google it after the show is over if you haven't seen it already. But she asked Drake, she's like, how much money is like enough money that you would just be willing to give me without even thinking about it? And he's like, enough. And I'm like, what is that number,
That's
Drake?
Actually a really good answer.
Right? And she was like, well, will you give it to me? And he's like, sure. And I'm like, what's that number for like Jamal Murray? Because if you win the FIBA World Cup, each player takes home $500,000, right? For me and you, I'm like, $500,000, sign me up right there. But for Jamal, he's probably like,
yeah, again,
a nice dinner,
especially because the NBA contracts with the high guarantees and the middle tier rotational NBA players make yearly like high end NFL money or like baseball money. It's crazy. When you look at if you look at some of the higher end talent, like some of the best wide receivers in the NFL, like the Jamar Chases, he's still probably he's on his rookie deal, but he will get paid. The Devontae Adams, the Cooper Kupps, those kind of guys, they make in a lot of cases like less money per year than say like a Will Barton.
Oh yeah.
Who's like a rotational player at this point, like $16-17 million a year. That's what they get.
Yeah.
So that number for Jamal is probably really high.
I know. That interview made me just laugh. And it's it's super awkward to watch.
It's like, it makes me like tense when I'm watching it.
And you're like, what on earth? But it just is that question. Now I kind of look at, any celebrity or athlete and I'm like, what's that number for you? Because for me, I'm like, I'm not even going to give you like $50.
Right.
I'm going to keep
exactly.
My 50.
And like that number for us is really low, but like same as the number that it's like, how much would I have to pay you to do X? And it's like some really embarrassing or difficult or like scary thing. The number for me is probably pretty low. Like
depending on what it is, anywhere between 100 and like $300. I'm like, I'll do it. I'll think about it.
And it always used to be like, did you ever watch Fear Factor when you were growing up?
Oh yes.
Yeah. Like with Joe Rogan and all that. Like they would, the second challenge on Fear Factor would always be, you're gonna have to eat something like horribly gross.
Tarantula.
And they're like, I would never do that. Yeah. It's like you're gonna eat a raw cow heart or like things that you would almost think like, is it even medically safe to do these things? But the prize is $50,000. And I was like, for $50,000,
sign me up.
I'll eat whatever I need to eat.
Although I have been watching Alone. Have you ever seen that show?
No.
Okay, so they like literally send people out into the wilderness and they're like, build your own survival, like survive for 100-something days or whatever. And it's like people obviously, when you're alone that long, you get in your head, you miss your family, you're building your shelter, you can't get food, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. So we watched one season of it and all in my head, I'm like, this isn't worth $500,000. For like 75 days to live by yourself, not have food, have to catch your own food. You don't know. Like the season I was watching, they couldn't get fish. Like there was just no fish in the lake. And I'm like, for $500,000, it would not like I couldn't do it. It wouldn't be worth it.
How many days would it take you to get to that point though? You think?
Like 2. Have you ever been in your house for like
2 days
with no contact with anyone? There's bears around you sniffing your campsite at night. You're having to hide your food somewhere else.
I would say this for $500,000, I'd give it the college try. If after 37 days, maybe I'm like going crazy and I'm starving because I've been eating bugs and mushrooms.
Wasted 37 days of your life for nothing. You don't get a single cent. Not worth it.
You gotta try though, right? $500,000.
I'm sorry, it's not worth it at all.
Oh my gosh.
I'm curious. Are you Team Richie or Team Rachel?
Sign me up.
No,
even if I fail, I'm gonna try.
Listen, I like my bed. I like my warmth. Yeah, you're like freezing too. It's like winter.
Yeah,
no, it's not worth it.
I could figure that out. The bears and the campsite thing, maybe. And if there's only so many days.
No.
That I could probably go off of like eating grass and if I can't fish, you know what I mean? First of all, I'm not even that good of a fisherman, probably period. Yeah. But especially if I don't have like a rod and bait and all that, like am I tying a string to a stick?
Quite literally.
Or whatever. Like if I can't do that, that probably would be what stops me, but I would hold out.
And you're just so hungry.
I would definitely eat a poisonous mushroom at some point. Like I don't know.
Richie would be getting called from the medical
I'd be like, oh, there's some berries in this bush. And next thing I know, I'm just like puking and like passing out. Yeah, that would honestly, I wouldn't make it, but it wouldn't be because I didn't try.
Oh, I'm just not trying at all. Definitely let us know. All right, we're about to head out to training camp. Anything you're looking forward to today?
Today specific, I think we're going to get a lot of 2-minute, right? Yep. So I will be very curious to see a lot more of that situational stuff because again, offensively, especially, they were inept in so many ways last year. And all of those little minute details weren't there because Nathaniel Hackett hadn't been in that position before. It's not an uncommon thing for a first-time head coach. So I will be very curious to see how dialed in they are on those situational things because those are the things you don't think about or you don't put as much importance on until they happen, until you're in a game situation and there's 36 seconds left and you're at this certain point on the field and you know where to go. And Sean Payton has shown that throughout these camps that like they will practice, hey, if a punt comes down on this specific side of the thing, there's this cool thing that we can do and we're going to practice it just in case or whatever it is. What about you?
I want to see Javonte back out there.
Yeah.
He's been a little rusted. So I'm like, all right, let's see him get back out there. Let's make sure we're still looking good. He's why I'm really nervous about him. I like Javonte Williams, especially as a person. So it's like, I really want him to do well.
Of course.
But coming back from that and how fast he is, I'm like, all right, you've had your rest. Like, how are we going to look? So I'm excited to see Javonte Williams get back out there. Hopefully Russ can fire up the crowd. We've only got 2 more days with fans at practice, which is crazy.
It goes by so quick.
It does. I'm not going to lie though. Last week when it was like 90 or here, whatever, I wasn't too sad. I was out there.
That's fair.
Also, I apparently said yesterday I went to Hawaii. I went to Alaska, everybody.
You did say that. I was kind of confused,
so
but I was like, maybe
messages.
you just did both. Like you kind of went up the.
I've just had a great summer, everybody, but summer is officially over. We're headed out to training camp. We will definitely be doing a wrap up after practice, and then we're going over to the denversports.com zone too. Check out everything over there. Say hi to the guys. If you're headed out to practice, make sure you do that, especially for tomorrow. And then we'll see you guys 10:30 a.m. for another episode of Coffee Break. As Cecil Lammy would say, get back to work, everybody. We'll see you guys tomorrow.